Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show 103 crafting discussion, and we're going to be talking about harvesting today. Say hello first of all, Joshua.
Hi guys.
And say hello, Lex.
Take two.
And looks like I haven't got you guys mixed up, so that's all perfectly well and good. So, as everybody knows, on Tuesday we touched on this, that we're going to be talking about the January newsletter because there was a big portion on harvesting. And we're actually going to go look at this in detail and in depth about how VR are going to approach all of this. So I'm going to basically read off what VR shared with the community. So what harvesting means in Pantheon. In Pantheon there are many paths to harvesting. What you need: killing monsters with your friends is one of the core gameplay experiences. So it should follow that monsters drop a variety of items that could be used to craft. We also have a large focus is on exploration. So it follows that you should be able to find things beyond just hidden or rare monsters, such as containers or nodes to interact with to scrounge up goods. Additionally, we would like to provide opportunities to remove items from the game economy, so having the option to break down existing items into ingredients or components will be an important facet. With those points in mind, let's dive in a bit. The skills you grow. When it comes to interacting with harvesting nodes, all players will have access to 5 skills they can raise through use: fishing, gathering, mining, skinning, and woodcutting. In order to utilize one of these skills, you'll need to find a target for that skill as well as have a tool that corresponds to the target. As a fledgling harvester, you'll start off looking for your first tool for each skill. Luckily, there's a few paths available. Many NPC settlements will have a harvesting related vendor ready to sell you beginning tools. You may also find harvesting related NPCs that will let you complete quests to receive tools. Or, if you're the type that likes to kill everything, you know who you are, you may find NPCs that drop them as loot. One of the source for harvesting tools is to have a woodworker, stonemason, or blacksmith craft. Let's take a look, a more detailed look at each of the individuals. Now, before we go into those, that's the basic general approach to how they want to approach the harvesting situation. And before we get into what VR are going to do, I'd like to get your guys' view on how other games have done harvesting, what you liked, what you disliked about them, and then we'll basically have a look at how VR are going to approach this, and then we'll look into the individual skills themselves. So we'll start with you, Josh.
Yep. Let's take the easiest one that they currently have is probably World of Warcraft, where people can gain resources through nodes throughout the world. Currently, I think that the way that they have it is that those nodes are built around, can be linked to each individual, so multiple people don't lose out on the node. One person can harvest it, and it's not going to stop another person from harvesting that same node, which is a load of rubbish in my mind. And it's pretty similar the way it used to work in EQ2 as well, but you'd have to fight for your nodes, which is great. They'd be placed in difficult areas as well, such as caves full of monsters, but you'd be able to get a good run of harvesting materials running through there and gathering them. So that would be my preference over the way WoW are dealing with it currently.
Lex?
Well, in terms of the node system, I'm a believer that either way can work in terms of shared nodes versus personal nodes. The key is if it's a node that everybody can harvest from, then it has to be fewer. I would love to see if maybe they mix and match them. Some are public, some are only for you, or basically contested, we'll say. The ones that anybody can mine like once every half hour, something like that. maybe you only get like 4 resources from it, whereas you find one that's a contestable one that you mine it and it's gone. Maybe you get 10. In terms of being able to do all of those things, fishing, gathering, mining, skinning, wood cutting, all that, all I can say is that I really, really, really hope that VR treads carefully.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer of just because I know how to mine gold ore doesn't mean I can't pick up some wood.
Mm.
But it should also mean that if I am a very, very skilled and specialized expert miner, I can get gems from the rocks, stuff like that.
Mm.
Obviously, my attention has gone into mining more than any other gathering skill.
Mm.
So I should not also be a master woodcutter.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say as well, just to add to that point, is that if you are a real retard when it comes to dealing with a specific way to gather or mine stuff, you can actually maybe destroy that node for a 24-hour period.
Oh, there's not just that. Look at it in the real world. You know, we can all gather plants and flowers, but you know, how many of us can easily say here we know which ones are deadly and not, which ones are valuable or not. Same with
that make me vomit when I eat them.
Exactly. It's the same with, you know, woodworking or fishing, right, or, you know, mining, skinning. You know, anybody can technically do that, but yeah, right, it's going to be the ones that are, you know, specialized in those crafts that will know right, where to go.
Specializing in anything, be it a gathering skill or a crafting skill, should make that individual special within that field.
So
if you're not specialized in it, you're not special in that field. Plain and simple.
Yeah. I'd also like to see, you know, if they say that you're going to have like a special tool for mining, a special tool for wood cutting or whatever, even gathering might need special gloves at the end of the day.
Well, let's go
that they need it. But I also want to say one thing. It should also be weight related. So you can't have all 5 tools in your backpack, because it's going to weigh you down. You're going to crawl along. So you might have to make a choice.
So let's,
continue.
So let's go and jump into all of this now, because we've already kind of established and kind of tread on some of the things. So if we look at how World of Warcraft have done it, you would pick one mining profession or one skinning profession. You would choose one harvesting profession, basically, and then that is it. That's what you go and do. You either go and gather plants, you go and gather rock, or you go and gather wood or whatever, and that's all you could basically do. Now, some people might like that and think that's a good way to do it. I do like the fact that it's very similar to how it's done in EverQuest 2. I think Vanguard had something similar as well, and EverQuest, where you can basically technically mine and gather and skin and fish and all that lot. And I do like what Lex said as well. There should be some kind of limitation, though. I should be forced to choose a specialization path where I basically become a master or something.
Just to kind of put a little final nail in that coffin, if VR is going to work on class interdependency for adventuring, why not gathering and why not crafting?
Exactly. Because if you can do everything, then, you know, where's the social aspect of that? If I can go and fish and get the rares, and skin and get the rare leathers, and woodcut and get the rare wood, and gather and get the rare plants, and mine and get the rare stuff, where's that social aspect of, you know, people reaching out to each other and going to the individual crafters or harvesters for these certain goods, or to the special NPCs that might sell them? But before we go, you know, get further into that, I want to quickly backtrack and talk about the tools, because I love the approach that they're making here, and I hope they do go one further with this. They've mentioned that there's multiple paths on how to get these tools. You can go to a settlement that has a vendor where you can get them. You have maybe an NPC, harvesting NPC, that gives you a quest to get these tools, or you can have them crafted, or they could drop from NPCs. Now, with that being said, I love that, but I would love to see some kind of variations in there. So, for instance, to get the better tool, you go to the harvesting NPC, for instance. So maybe they have 4 different tier versions, or 5. There's 5 tiers as an example. Levels 1 through 50. So every 10 levels, it's a tier. But now you've got the settlement that sells them. So the vendor might sell you the basic version, tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
A NPC might drop a special version that might have some limitations or some bonuses on that tool, depending on what kind of NPC it was, where that was dropped from. So if it's a basic mining ogre or orc or whatever that has been using that tool, you might be able to only mine the basic stone with that. Now, then you've got the harvesting related NPC that offers you a quest. Now, he might offer you another special version that's slightly better than what maybe the NPCs drop. So that, obviously it will come down to how hard this quest is and, whatever you want to go through. And then you've got the crafters to look at as well. And now, they've mentioned in a few streams as well that crafting items will be just as valuable or equal or even better than what you might find out in the world. Does that also mean that to get the best tiered mining tool or fishing pole or skinning knife, you might have to go to one of these crafters? Another thing that I would love to see. So what's your take on it, guys?
I personally feel that, the one thing I used to love about EverQuest 2, especially around harvesting and that type of thing, is that they actually built items specifically for the purpose of harvesting, like a cloak. You could have a cloak that gave you a little bit of extra run speed, allowed you to give you a bonus to gathering a certain whatever your profession was,
or speed.
And ultimately, you could get your epic in crafting at the end of the day as well.
Yeah.
Which is great, because I do feel that we all have a bit of crafting and harvesting in us that we love to go wild with as well. And people love to specialize in those type of things. If they could do that the whole time, they would. But yeah, I do think that having quests, getting better stuff is going to be something they need to specialize in as well.
And it also sounds like, though, that they could even go one further and create a 3-way game where you have your adventuring side of the game, you've got your crafting side of the game, and now you've got your harvesting side of the game.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're trying to venture out the possibilities on how to bring in this interdependency and socialization to a new level. And I would love to actually, I personally would welcome to see harvesting have its own kind of epic where you get, because maybe that's something that you could do. Maybe that NPC offers you the epic skinning knife or the epic, gathering scythe, or the mining axe and the fishing pole and the wooden saw. So those, it definitely sounds like that's an approach that they could take going forward, because why shouldn't you? You could be a crafter and you could be a harvester, but maybe you're not the best in harvesting, but you've got your profession in crafting worked out. And with this, for instance, like, let's look at the skinning knife. Maybe it starts out that you start out with a basic knife, and it only offers you maybe, this is how Landmark, I'm going to touch on Landmark real quick, because they had the base, something similar to this with the gathering tools. You had your basic, I'm just going to say your basic pickaxe, then you had your mithril pickaxe, your gold pickaxe, and so forth and so forth. And with that would unlock what materials you could access. Mm-hmm. So you would start off with your normal pickaxe, you would be able to gather copper and stone with that. Once you had enough copper and enough stone, you could make the copper pickaxe. And with that, you could start mining iron and this and that, and then basically once you got the iron together and the other one, you would basically get the next tiered pickaxe and so forth. So I think that's something that they could even do here as well, is tier out the weapon, the tools that you have at your disposal, and make and this actually makes it a challenge as well. Adds a time sink to the game, because you're gonna have to go and gather all these different materials to get to bring to that harvesting NPC, that or to the crafters even, to make that better item. And one more thing I just want to touch on real quick, and I'll let you guys get in, is I would also like to see these items have degradation on it. They should end up being blunt, or the fishing pole needs a new lining, or the skinning knife needs sharpening again, or the wooden saw, the blades need to be switched out and stuff like that as well. And a good point that you guys also made as well is weight. You should, going into the next part in a minute, but I'll let you guys get in first, touching on the specializations. We'll let Lex have a quick chat. He's been quiet for too long.
I've been very patient. I've been a good boy today.
Go on, Lex.
You mean now?
Yes, now.
Yes.
We're asking for your input.
Wow, I'm kind of flustered. The different sources for your gathering tools, I like that. It does take it one step closer to the adventuring side of things, which feels more dimensional than traditional crafting has been in the past, where it's just buy your tool, go get stuff, make stuff, repeat. Being able to, as a gatherer or a crafter or whatnot, go adventuring with friends and then go, oh my god, something dropped specifically for me as a gatherer. That's great. You're giving another, like, a great experience to someone else, doing not what is their primary love, I guess you could say, but bringing their interest into it still. It also does create a little bit of an economy, because then now adventurers can help gatherers, because you can get these tools and stuff. And when you look at adventurers, their gear is acquired multiple ways: killing, questing, buying. I don't see any reason why gatherers can't share the same three-dimensional kind of stance for their gear.
Exactly.
Personally, with the tier system from Landmark, I did not like that. I'm going to use the wrong word here, but let me explain it after I say it. I felt that the tiered system was very juvenile, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean as it's not fully fleshed out from Landmark. Okay, because it was very much a do this, like get this axe or pickaxe, do this, get that pickaxe, do this, get that pickaxe. It was very almost handhold
on rails.
Yeah.
I mean,
take that away. Basically eliminate that, and you have to go and kind of figure it out for yourself. Is the way to go.
Right. And I'm not saying that VR couldn't implement that system much better. I think anybody could.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where on the face of it, I don't like it, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Being a person who is primarily an adventurer, I really do want to get into the gathering game. I want to get into the crafting game, because in the past it's all been portions of the game that really has had no appeal to me, and thus kind of wasted. From my perspective, it was a waste of time. But I want to experience all of Pantheon. Now, the whole durability of your weapons, as long as it's balanced, I'm okay with that. Or as long as when it's done with its durability, it's not necessarily broken, it just needs to be sharpened, it needs to be whatever, and
need a master crafter to fix it.
Right, because there's nothing more annoying than going and working on a trying to get a very special weapon or a very special tool, and then all of a sudden you're not really paying attention. You're kind of having a good time doing your own thing, and then pink, it's broken and it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be very frustrating.
Frustrating, agreed.
So I do like the idea, with some stipulations.
Yeah, exactly. From my point of view, I also think that you obviously need different tiers of items to harvest. And you would need to find, obviously, rare materials in order to craft these things. So, yeah, you can have those tier up in terms of materials to create the stuff, but you might need X, Y, and Z rare items in order to make sure that it is of a specific quality to be able to mine stuff, woodcut stuff, skin stuff, etc. I also think that perhaps it's a risk versus reward in terms of the items that you are going to mine, skin, and woodcut, as to where you find them. So you might only find, I would love there to be specific regions that have areas where you can find only this rare rock that you need.
Where it makes sense, basically, like, you know, in a lava mountain, you're going to find the lava rock. You're not gonna find outside in the woods, in the woodland. But another thing that I would definitely love to see, though, is it being a skill as well. You can't get the best fishing pole and start fishing and get the best results from the get-go. You've got to learn to become somebody who can fish, who can gather, who can skin, who can mine, or who can woodcut. It's something you have to learn over time, and you basically start off with your basic, then you can upgrade to the next knife or to the next fishing pole, because now you can start gathering the trout and or skinning the bears.
With these higher level tools, you can do something other than just say you can only harvest this material with that, because you could lock the material behind the skill, essentially saying you have to be a very skilled miner to get gold out of the rocks.
Exactly, yeah.
But you could say that a higher quality tool or a higher tiered tool could make the process faster or produce more per swing.
Exactly.
Something like that.
That's how it was done in Landmark. You had multiple tools for per tier. One would basically have a higher yield. The other one would have a higher radius. The other one would be a lot faster. The other one would gather more of that resource that you're trying to gather. And it's something I could see actually happen with these tools. That you have a choice what you want to go for. Do you want to go and have a higher yield with this tool, or do you want to have a higher return rate of materials you're getting, or do you want to have a higher chance of getting a rare or something like that, or do you want to be fast and small? Because this also offers up a new market. You can have harvesters as an actual trade.
What you value. If I value speed because I'm a dungeon guy, and I don't want my team waiting 5 seconds every time I cross a node, I'm obviously going to opt in for speed.
That's my
no matter
weakness.
What. Because it's just go, 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 let's go. Otherwise, I'm just not going to bother. Because to me, I value up my team members' time. Kid Rich, sorry if I slaughtered your name, actually triggered something, a thought in my head, like we was talking about areas where you have to learn the resistances, like the acclimation for climates. I would love to see special nodes in certain climates.
Definitely.
Environmental
region based.
Like in Amber Fate. That bridge with the
maybe that's the only place you can get some crazy kind of ice crystal.
Yeah, and in the middle of that bridge, you got crystals on the sides.
Yeah.
Now you go in there, you're not acclimated, you don't have that tool. You go in there, you freeze to death. Yeah, and people run by you and see you frozen there. Like the effect is you get frozen for 10 minutes. You can't move.
10 minutes. Oh God.
just messing them up.
10 seconds, because everybody who plays a character that has a lot of really big cooldowns knows that 5 seconds in an MMO is an eternity.
But anyway, let's go and talk about how they should handle harvesting in general. Now, for me personally, I am not a big fan of how it's done in World of Warcraft or similar games to that, where you have to pick one of the 5. Like you mentioned earlier on, and Josh as well, and we've talked about this off the air and all that good stuff. I can do a bit of everything, but now for me to learn about which plants not to touch or which mushrooms not to pick, I might have to specialize. I might have to go to a trainer and say, look, I want to become a master gatherer. But I would like to see something along the lines of maybe picking 2 of the 5.
Actually, what if it were you have 2 specializations that are basically spent the way you want them to be? It could be 2 in gathering, 2 in crafting, or 1 in each.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'd even go a third way. I would actually put a point system against each one of those types of things. So you can split those points. Maybe you get 100 points to split against all of those things. And you have to either can put 100 points into wood cutting from the beginning, and then you get 5 points per level going forward. So in that way, you can focus on that, or you can be weak in all type of thing.
The only problem I would possibly see with a point system is that it's really going to promote min-maxing. Like, if I'm a blacksmith, that I have to get some wood to fuel my forges or whatever. I have to get ore, obviously. I would have to have a minimum amount of 65 skill in wood cutting so that I can get the best wood for my high-end blacksmithing stuff, and then the rest goes into blacksmithing. I'm almost certain that we're going to see a lot of skills go up in like 5-point increments, maybe.
The way I would basically get around all of that is you pick your 2 professions, like fishing and gathering. But you're not limited to just those going forward.
No.
You can still skin and mine and woodcut all the way up to tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, you name it. But you'll get only the basic materials going forward. You would, however, get with fishing and gathering the rare elements of that, the unique elements of that going forward in those tiers. So, as an example, let's say at level 20, you have to pick pick 2 of your harvesting professions that you would like to specialize in and become an expert in. You pick them, but you can still use the other ones, utilize the other ones, but you're not going to be able to identify that rare mushroom that gives you twinkles in your eyes when you eat it, and you're not going to be able to identify that rare fish, or that rare fishing pole is not going to identify that stinky shoe in the lake that might have a gold nugget inside.
Right. I mean, I always thought it was odd, these MMOs that force you to choose a profession and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I always go some sort of blacksmith, and I always go mining to complement it because it's just common sense. But I always thought it was odd that at the low levels, you're telling me that because I can swing a pickaxe, I can't pick a flower?
Yeah.
Pretty sure I could still pick up a flower. Now, if it's like some big thorn bush and I have to figure out if I'm trying to get the roots because this is a advanced gathering technique for herbs, then yeah, I wouldn't know how to do that because I'm just a silly miner.
Yeah.
Because that makes sense to me.
Just putting points into it, having and the risk of min-maxing also brings in the factor that you can, rehash those points. You can go to a trainer and change it up again. With what kind of Lex and I would be suggesting, choice matters. Once you've picked something, you're done. If you want to go and do something else, create another character, work your way up and do that.
I would say once you pass a certain point.
Yeah.
Simply because there have been times where, as a tank character, I always go for what's going to be technically the best for me to better improve my performance as a tank. More often than not, that tends to be some sort of armor smithing. Every now and then you'll find that it's like alchemy for potions, depending on the style of game it is. More than once I've been burned with my choice because I just didn't feel like spending 2 hours online to figure out what profession I should choose.
That's why I had a suggestion coming with that to complement it. Basically, let's say, for instance, you would technically have to pick, or at level 20, you have the option to choose your 2 professions. You don't have to do it there, though. You can still go out and gather the normal stuff all the way up to level 50. And as you go through those levels, obviously you're going to hear more and learn more and explore more and find out more about all these different things, how they work together. You're going to see what could be of value to you in crafting. And then at level 50 or so, or level 60 or whatever, you might decide then to go and specialize. So that's kind of the workaround, because like you said, you might not be sure if you want to go into if you want to go into an armor smith or weaponsmith, and they might require different harvesting materials,
or complementary gathering.
Exactly.
Skills.
So you've gone and picked the other, you've gone and picked the 2 there and then on the spot, or been forced to pick to it. It should always be optional. You can choose to. And if you do at level 20, that gives you access, obviously, to the rares. But if you don't, you can still go out and gather the normal stuff.
I would say you can't advance beyond a certain point unless you commit. At which point, that will allow you to specialize. Because once you commit, then there's no turning back. Then I'm fine, because, like, we'll say that skill at 100 is max, just for simplicity.
Yeah.
If you give me the first 30 skill points to just try it out, but that's it. That's as far as I can go with 30 until I commit to one. I'm happy, because that means I've probably got every gathering skill at 30 besides fishing. Different story. And by then I should be aware of what I need for my craft, or if I even want to craft, or if I even want to gather by that point.
What about adding schooling tiers additionally to the individual harvesting traits? So you start as an innate fisher, innate gatherer, innate skinner, innate miner, innate woodcutter. Similar to what you just suggested. It's 20 points. If you want to carry on...
Initiate, you mean?
Yeah, initiate. So you basically would go then to the trainer, and he would, explain to you, tell you, if you want to go and, explore more on fishing, I can teach you or give you this book to read up on, other fish and other this and other that. And then now you become the next one. You become an apprentice fisher, apprentice gatherer. But ultimately, you would have to become, or you would have the choice to pick 2 to become a master gatherer or a master skinner. But you could kind of like skill up. So this gives you option. You might not want to go and do the skinning right now and go to apprentice.
Yeah. I mean, that's a much more modern approach. Just sticking with skills is very primitive. And I went there just for simplicity. But I mean, yeah, if you did skills based upon your tier, like, you'd max out that tier, and then you can tier up or level it up. And, once you get to a point, the trainer gives you a warning, says, this is going to require a lot of dedication to go past this point. Are you sure you want to do this? Because you will not be able to do it in something else. Then, as long as I got the warning, I'm probably going to be like, am I really sure? Instead of just clicking and being all mad because I chose the wrong thing.
Yeah. So ultimately, choice should matter. Yes. But there should be warning. Yeah. And that's something that's lacked in a lot of these MMOs is they'll hint at something and you'll do it and you'll find out later on that, hey, I wasn't really informed. I wasn't really, this wasn't meant to happen. And as a gigging pressing, what they basically did is they went and offered up reskilling and rollbacking and, you know, paying one plat to go and readjust your points and everything, because of the lack of dedication to informing the player what is about to happen. These are the risks that you're going to have, and in real life, that's the information you get as well. You get
in real life, we don't usually have the courtesy of, this is a big decision.
No, but you get informed by people.
If we're playing a game, the last thing we want to do is deal with unexpected consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Granted, consequences make the game, but unexpected consequences make you rage.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
It would definitely save a lot of rage. So, anything you want to add, Josh? Or we'll move on into the individual traits themselves now?
No, I think that, you guys are 100% right. Choice matters. And I think that once you go past a certain point, you should have had enough knowledge at that point to understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. It's up to, obviously, VR to make sure that they document and make sure everything is streamlined and smooth and understood by a certain point.
Right.
So, yeah, I totally agree with what you guys are saying.
Actually, one thing I want to touch on real quick is the crafting aspect of this as well. Because they mention a woodworker, stonemason, or blacksmith. Does that mean that technically a woodworker can make you a fishing pole? A stonemason could add something to that maybe, or have a own variation? And a blacksmith could have one? Leaves a lot of room. It leaves a lot of room to expand on that as well. When so would you prefer to have the woodmaker only make what makes sense for woodworking? Have the stonemason make maybe, you know, for the mining, the axe, the blacksmith, the skinning knife, or would you like it to be a kind of mix? So they could technically upgrade or add additional effects to the woodworking fishing pole, for instance, or the woodworking saw. So you go to the stonemason, and he adds maybe a resistibility or a special stone on the metal itself that gives it a faster cutting speed, or he adds a stone to the fishing pole that makes, you know, gives it a bit more weight. The blacksmith might add, you know, another thing to it. Or would you prefer to be individual or mix and match? They can all do something.
I think mix and match. I think that this is where their interdependability, I think that's the right word, comes into play. Where, you know, if I want to be the best at fishing, I'm going to require 4 or 5 different items from different crafters out there. And I might have to put it all together to make the one uber fishing pole that I need. And yeah, I just, one thing I just want us to, I think one of the points that came up was the perception system.
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, good. But anyway, yeah, I do think that if multiple items come from various crafters to enhance items that you're going to use, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I actually want recipes, unique recipes for crafters to have that will
to require.
To acquire in order to enhance the fishing, skinning, wood cutting, gathering, mining, and salvaging side of it.
No, basically, I could see the crafters, if they want to go and be able to make a fishing pole, or make an addition to the fishing pole, or the skinning knife, or the wood cutting saw, or the gathering scythe, or the mining axe, they would have to acquire the knowledge to do that as well. That adds another time sink into the game, another resource to take away from the player economy. So something that I think would actually enhance the crafting experience. So not every woodworker knows how to make a fishing pole, because maybe that woodworker doesn't give a damn about the harvesting aspect of the game. Or, you know, he's decided to go and become a specialist in wood cutting tools or the stonemasons decided to look at the scythes for the gathering rather than the mining axe, or he's not bothered as well. So you know, you have to acquire the knowledge for these, and it adds another time sink. So let's go and move on. But one question I want to ask you guys: we've all done these, or had some kind of interaction with fishing, skinning, woodcutting, gathering, mining. Was there one of those professions that you hated with a passion, and why?
You can take it away, Lex. I think you're pretty verbal on one of them.
Fishing. It's the most boring damn thing in any MMO I've ever experienced in my life. I don't care what I've tried it in every single one. My wife, she loves fishing in MMOs. I cannot freaking stand it. I would rather gouge out my eyes with spoons and fill my sockets full of salt.
What about you, Josh?
Probably gathering. To be honest, I didn't mind fishing. I enjoyed the break from running around and killing stuff now and again. But yeah, gathering is like pretty boring and dull for me. But generally, I enjoy the aspect of it overall. And yourself?
I hate it as well. Fishing was the one thing that I hated. The only reason why, you know, it was one of those forced elements. The reason why I did it is so I can get my harvesting cloak, or so I can get my epic, or so I can get my, you know, this. And because swimming was a part of the game as well as a skill. So I could swim in the water, you know, level my swimming skill, but at the same time I could then go and gather my fish. And fishing is one thing I really hated. And now we're going to get into what VR planning to do. And oh my god, does this blow my mind and say yes to fishing. And finally somebody's actually sat down and given it a hell of a lot of thought and made it really interesting and a vital harvesting resource. So let me go and read up on fishing. Once you've acquired your first pole, the next step is to find a fishable body of water. Many of the waterways in Terminus will be fishable, with shared fishing related loot based on the local ecology. Makes sense. Expect to find certain wildlife that's catchable only in brackish water, freshwater, saltwater lakes, rivers, ponds or swamps. Starting out, you can expect to catch lots of algae and occasionally rusted or soggy goods. As your skill grows with use, you'll find more exotic wildlife to use in crafting and clues to lost treasures. As an advanced fisherman, you can acquire sturdier and more exotic fishing poles to fish in other bodies of liquid such as raw mana and pools of toxic ichor. Some examples of the wildlife you'll encounter from fishing are brouter, soldier, fish, cousin, raytails, silverfish, saltbelly, craws, mud kings, or damnics, or whatever you call that, cuddle creepers, snapfishes, and meat mauls. Primary use for fishing rewards is for crafting recipes by provisioners, cooking, brewing, with some overlaps for alchemists and scribes. And oh my god, does that sound amazing! Finally, somebody sat there and looked at Moby Dick and looked at some of the old child programs. Because reading up on rusted or soggy goods, you find that old boot, that old sock in the pond. You find that rusty dagger. You find that, rusty chest.
A used band-aid.
Yeah, it's finally somebody's gone there. And what happens if you don't get a fish? So you technically throw this, you hook your pole, you toss it out into the water, you spend a couple of seconds fishing, and all of a sudden, you're expecting to pull up a fish, you pull, and no, guess what? It's Lex's old boot.
or his glass eyes.
It's definitely something where I can see people having a lot of fun in doing that. And then we'll look at salvaging later as well, because I think that's where salvaging could come in. Like rusted items, for instance. If you go and try and salvage this, or you bring it to a crafter to kind of look at it with more detail, you might find out that underneath that rusted blade or that rusted piece of metal is actually a rare metal piece. It's actually gold.
Mm-hmm.
It just basically had a rusted nest around it, or stuff like that. But let's go and look at the clues to lost treasure. That's the most interesting aspect about this. Now, for me personally, looking on at this screams perception for me. This screams alternate ways to unlock maybe quests that you can only find. We've seen it in multiple games where you click on an item, it offers you a quest. That's how I can see something like this being done. And I can see a lot of people maybe missing out. You could have it linked to what we suggested earlier on, depending on what kind of pole you've got and what tier you are, and if you're specialized, you might get different outcomes. You might get you might get that quest, you might not. You might get a hint of perception, you might not. And it definitely is a huge refreshment. And would make me actually want to spend an hour standing at that lake or that river bed and just throwing the pole in there to see what happens.
Yeah, I think as well. I really will enjoy the perception system around the fishing side of it. One other aspect of it that could also be something which might be for people that like to adventure a lot more than fish is maybe having crayfish. What do they call them? Those cages that you could actually throw out and leave for a day or two and come back.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. That's a really cool idea. That
would almost be like a supplement of offline fishing. Which
yeah,
is something
and you can
I would do.
And you can put lures in there that can lure rare fish in there if you like. It all depends on how exotic those cages are.
Maybe that's something that the crafters can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the harvesting NPC only sells you the basic fishing tool. So you get a fishing pole, you get your bait and bait as well. You can have different baits as well. That the better the bait is, the more chance you got. So you start off with a ringworm, you're only going to get a few bites, or that ringworm might just swim away. So yeah, definitely, that's actually a pretty cool idea. Adding some adjustments and some fun features, and even if it's only for fluff,
right?
Yeah.
Where you set up like a tent outside the river, and you got your baskets around it, and you toss them in there, and maybe you have to sit around for 15-20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
See, for me, fishing was always just boring because you press the fish button. If it's a game that requires a little interactivity, you basically sit there in your chair going, "Oh God, just move, please," and it moves. You click, and you just do it all over again.
What about having your mouse, for instance, go left and right or up and down on the screen? So depending on how you do it, either you overhook, or you snap the lining, or you lose the bait. Mini games.
Personally, I would love to have it to be almost like a mini game where you actually have to utilize your mouse to cast, or maybe you have to like pull it in and. I don't know. I'm just winging ideas out of my brain here, but you could, if you have a mouse wheel, use your mouse wheel to reel them in or something. Just something it's a little more hands-on versus punch, like press button, click mouse.
Right.
Press button, click mouse.
But this is also
where virtual reality would be a great thing.
Oh, definitely.
You could have an item, you can cast it, and.
But this is where also the aspect of maybe group harvesting comes into play as well. To get that interaction. So instead of your friends have gone offline, your adventuring friends have gone offline. There's no more dungeon running for you to do because nobody's there. Or you can't be bothered to go and look outside. You now go and fish for yourself, or you go and gather for yourself. But what if you could actually make that into an event and go, "Hey guys, I'm about to go fishing down, at Thrown Fast lakes, and anybody want to come join me?
Fishing party.
And you have a fishing party, so and you're actually doing something. You know, you can sit there, talk with each other, have fun, skill up, and
now with fishing, I can't remember. I think this was the first online Final Fantasy that did this. I'm not 100% certain at this point. It's been a couple years, but with fishing, every now and then you could catch an aquatic monster. It doesn't necessarily have to be hard. It could be like under your level. They can spawn it based upon the person's level that cast it, basically. You know, and all of a sudden you go from fishing to, oh God, I have a fight on my hands because I got this crazy rabid freaking crab thing after me. But if you've got friends around, that would also be kind of enjoyable too, because all of a sudden now everyone's getting a laugh watching you run away from this freaking little crab thing, you know?
And the thing is as well, it adds a time sink. And it's not something, and you don't feel like, you know, you're being forced to do this because you need to go and fish to get your skill up so you can become, you know, get your master cloak or your, you know, your epic crafting item. You know, it's not something you feel enlightened. You feel like, you know, you enjoy actually going out of your way, taking the time to spend an hour and fish with people or fish with them. And you can also add, you know, group bonuses. So instead of throwing out your fishing pole, you actually throw out a net. And depending on how many people you are in the group, if you've got a full group who are doing fishing, that gives you a net of 5 people or 6 or whatever the group size is going to be, giving you a higher yield, a higher chance to gather more or find maybe a higher rate to get lost treasure or to find soggy and rusted goods. You could also, you know, add different things to that fishing net. So you throw out this fishing net, and this one's got something like, you know, you know, it's got something on there from a crafter that gives you like a magnet to rust. So you add a magnet onto that, so you've got a higher chance to gather rusted items. Or there's something in there that draws odor to it, so you get the soggy goods, the stinky socks, the wet boots. Or it's got something on there that gives you a better baiting to catch more fish. So you might want to go and get something for the provisioners, but you might also want to get something for the alchemist or for the scribe or for yourself or for yourselves. There's no reason why they couldn't add in lost treasures that are for groups as well.
Exactly.
You know, there might be the Titanic in those waters, and you need a group or a raid of people to pull that thing up.
Yeah, I mean, group gathering is certainly an interesting idea. I would love to see VR just kind of run with it, even if just it was a test. It would be very difficult from a programming point of view, though. So I would not blame them if they kind of steered away from that, at least for now.
Yeah.
But what I was going to interrupt, and yes, I'm getting better with my interruptions. I'm learning. Is the biggest problem with gathering is that you do it because you feel you have to achieve the end goal of another craft.
I felt that with fishing.
Why don't they ever make gathering skills something that benefits you by doing it? You have fun by doing it. Put time into designing it better so that the fact that you're doing this gathering is actually worth it on its own.
I know where Nex is going with this, and hell no. No shinies in Pantheon.
No, I hate shinies. I hate those.
No.
Things, we'll say. No, but no shinies. No. Add some kind of minigame to it. Add some kind of just fun or funny things to it. Like with EverQuest, yes, it's a very old game. Yes, it was one of the first. But there's tons of Easter eggs that made things enjoyable that people still remember to this day. Like you spilt your beer.
Let me go and read.
First time anyone saw that, they laughed.
Let me go and read Gathering, because you kind of like, you know, jump right into it. So that everybody gets the gist of what VR want to do. And I've actually got an idea to what you just said as well, so I'll get into that in a minute. Gathering, and Josh, if you want to, you know, track back because Lex kind of, you know, jumped ahead, you're welcome to do that in a minute. When you've received your first harvesting sickle, you need to find some plants or fungi to get started. Many will be local to specific zones or regions, so your experience will vary depending on where you travel. You'll want to search high and low if gathering is of interest to you, as you never know what you may find around the next bend or over the next hill. Early on, a gatherer should expect to interact with more mundane plants and fungi such as basic crops, herbs, roots, fibrous plants like jute, and a variety of mushrooms. As a gatherer grows their skills and upgrades their sickle, they'll be able to harvest more exotic targets such as the corpses of nature-based elementals, myconoids, and plants rich in raw energies. The primary use for gathering yields is in crafting recipes for alchemists and provisioners, with some overlap for scribes and outfitters. So that's the gathering. And before I get into what I want to say, Josh, is there anything you want to add to fishing?
We did skip the last paragraph of fishing, by the way.
Hey, what? No, I didn't. I read that through.
Did we?
I read that through.
I think we skipped it, didn't we?
Primaries for fishing rewards for crafting.
I read that through. Guys in chat,
Oh,
please verify that I finished that paragraph completely.
You don't have to lie for him. It's okay.
For me, the one good thing about for me it was pretty cool is, and I don't know if anybody else has done it, but maybe it just makes me odd. But I'd love to find like the high level areas to fish, and you would just find an area where the mob kind of missed you, and you could just sit there the whole day and just be in this high level zone where you get knocked over if you get one shotted basically. But you found your little area there, and you could just fish, and you'd find some good rares over there. So yeah, I enjoyed it for that purpose.
What about dangerous waters? Shark comes along and wabom, or the alligator swamps. We've got swamps as well. Don't forget that.
Exactly.
You stick your pole into that swamp hole, and all of a sudden, what's up, Lex?
Yeah, which pole?
Hey, where you guys take this is, you know, rated PG. Watch the Terminus show today is rated PG.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Well, I will say that if stuff will like jump out of the water to like take a chomp at me, I'm out. I'm out. I'm completely out. That's one of the few things that I fear with a passion in real life. So if something like that, I wouldn't touch fishing. There's no way.
They had a bucket in EverQuest 2 in Sinking Sands in one of the zones where you had to put a fish in to get the rare crocodile that was in that zone as well. You had to kick it over. You had to knock it over, basically. You put the bait in there, you knock it over, and then this crocodile would come at you. Pretty cool stuff. I loved it. Anyway, so to touch on the gathering, Lex, to add that little extra, they've mentioned basic crops, herbs, roots. So what if you become a gatherer, you might have to go and plant those crops, herbs, roots to give later on to the provisioner, the alchemist, or the outfitter and the scribe. Because I'm a crafter. I'm not a harvester. So basically it creates another semi-crafting profession in its own. The same with the fishing, the gathering, the skinning. You can go with all of these in this direction. Because the crafter is a guy who makes the product. The harvester technically is the tier 1 guy. He's basically the guy who goes into the mountain and gets all the stone and rock out of there, or goes fishing and gets the fish, and so forth and so forth. And then you've got your crafters that are basically demand and supply. And then you've got your adventurers, who are the people that buy the stuff. That's how I can see then breaking it down into those 3. So
essentially a supply chain, basically.
You create a supply chain. Yep. So you've got your harvesters who are they're the first part of that chain. The fishers basically gather the fish, they clean it up, they do this, they do that, they bring it to the provisioner, he cooks it. And the same with the gatherers. You plant the crops, you plant the herbs, you plant the roots. It could also be something similar to what we said with fishing. You plant the roots, 24 hours later, boom, it's sprouted. Now you go there, and now you have a random effect happen. You might get 5 of those root, you might get 3 of that root, you might get 10 of that root, you might get 15. So it's almost similar to gathering itself, where you get random numbers depending on what kind of tool you have, and this and that and so forth. What how your skill is, what level you are, that all affects you. So that's how they could technically do that. They could add in all these little things to expand and advance that experience and give you a meaning to gathering. And that also adds to the choice of, do I really want to become a specialist in gathering and plant seeds and keep care of my garden all day? What happens if it starts, if we have a dry spell?
What happens if a Scar decides to relieve himself?
Exactly.
And burns all the plants.
I'm just saying it can happen.
Yeah, so that's one thing, because if you remember back a few months ago, they put out that screenshot where they had that little house with the garden fence around it and the apple tree in the middle.
Yeah.
Now that's where I could see this happening with gathering, adding that little flair to it. Why not go the extra mile? They've put so much passion into the recreation of some of the races. They put so much passion in the story behind Pantheon, Terminus, and all of that. And when you look at their passion towards the designing of the game, and even this newsletter, there's definitely a lot of love in it. So go that extra mile and put that that little extra touch towards it, making your game actually really unique, and redefining how crafters and harvesters are involved in MMOs. I'm still waiting for that first MMO to come out where I can choose to either be an adventurer, a crafter, or a harvester, and spend, my entire life playing that game and not once gone out leveling and getting gear and going in dungeons, because I'm having so much fun with either crafting and interacting with the cities and creating trades and partnerships and all this stuff, or harvesting and actually providing a service to the cities. Maybe that's something that they could add as well. That only harvesters that have a mastercraft can provide for cities with, bulkware. And that adds, maybe that adds some kind of upgrades to, or the well-being of the city can be influenced based on if you decide to give your bulk to the city, or give it to a crafter, or keep it for yourself and stuff like that. So,
right,
just some food for thought. Anyway, gathering.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it would be certainly interesting, because again, it would just add more dimension to gathering in general, gathering skills. I mean, I've been sitting here kind of going, on the crafting side, you adventure for rare parts for gear. As an adventurer, you adventure for rare gear, or you would talk to a crafter for rare gear, and it works both ways. But with a general gatherer type, it's always kind of like, you just go, you have fun, you get your stuff, and then you move it along. Whether you use it yourself and create something and move that, or you move the raw materials along. But I mean, to have it work the other way around in some fashion, or to give you another option to it, it would add depth. And I absolutely agree what you said about the little touches are what matter, because when you look at MMOs, there's only one game. They're all the same. They're just carbon copies of each one with slight flavor differences. That's really all it is. And that's not to start a big conversation about that. I'm just saying, on the face of it. So when you add these flavors, you're creating your own definition of what you feel that this MMO game should be.
And they've already mentioned as well that you would benefit from becoming a crafter and an adventurer later on in the game. So why not benefit from becoming a crafter, adventurer, and a harvester? You know, so you could also get a benefit from having, you know, being fulfilled in all three to 100%, as an example. And, you know, let's add on top of that the keeper, the perception, the keeper. You know, you're fulfilled because these are all time sinks. Because that's what people are getting fed up with. Expansions being released on, you know, basically on the day to that, you know, at that time every year, year in, year out, because, you know, the creativity from the developers is lacking. You know, I don't, you know, if they put so much that I can do in this game from the get-go, and I can basically just shut off and, oh my god, it's been a year and a half and I still haven't, you know, got shit done. Or I've only just, you know, finally touched on this. I'm a happy customer.
Yeah. But the one thing that I'd say that is that I think a lot of the MMOs in the past had just tagged on these type of things after they've developed the main bulk of the game.
Yeah.
So the good thing about VR is they bring it right from the beginning, so to speak. And I think that they'll find a lot easier to implement things like maybe seasonal harvesting, where under a full moon you can only harvest the silver leaf that is a rare component for a potion or something.
Oh,
like
yes, weather
so
affecting
weather
you
has
as well.
effect.
So if it's raining like mad, you might not be able to gather that plant or get that fish or skin that bear that you've been hunting for the last week, because guess what? He's gone in hiding, or those plants are flooded.
Yeah, it would also be interesting if they could, because I don't know how their back end is set up, if they could actually determine with the weather what the weather has been like for so many days. Because you could make it where if there is a drought, then there's not as many plants, right? But I mean, that would create fluctuations in the market, which would make it feel more alive.
Yeah,
exactly.
So let me go and read up on skinning. Because gathering, I think, is pretty straightforward.
It is.
Unless you want to add something, Josh. Got anything to add, Josh, to gathering?
No, I just think that they should think about seasonal gathering. I think that they should make gathering challenging and make it fun at the end of the day.
Yeah,
it's boring.
Seasonal gathering makes sense for the fact that we're going to have weather in the game, so we can expect, you know, seasons, winter, spring, autumn, and, you know, and at certain seasons, at certain times, only certain plants and fungi are going to be available or be harvestable.
Yeah.
You know, it takes years to go and plant an apple tree and grow those apples, and it's only normally during a certain period in time where they start to blossom and grow. So it would make sense for gathering in that aspect, definitely having seasonal gathering. And this also adds a twist to how we engage the game as well. It's not all the same. It's not all mundane. It's not all, you know, I go fishing, I go gathering, I go skinning, I go mining, I go woodcutting. Rinse and repeat. No. Fishing's done like this, and, you know, you have a mini game here. With gathering, I have to go and grow my crops, so I can only gather at certain times or certain periods of weather. I have to, you know, look out for my crops. And the same goes with skinning, mining, and woodcut, and we'll get into that now. So we'll go and read up on skinning.
Just one question to think about as well before we go. I mean, are we going to get things like rares that are going to be bind on pickup, or is everything going to be sellable on the market?
Yep. Let me go and read that, and we'll get into that in a bit. I think they've talked about that. I can't remember. Skinning. To get going as a neophyte skinner, you'll need to find a skinning knife and some animal corpses. Whether you're making the corpses yourself, or other players around you are the ones making the mess, a corpse will need to be fully looted before it can be skinned. The early experience as a skinner will find them taking the hides, meats, and blood of small mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. As a skinner becomes more skilled, they'll be tackling larger animal corpses. Eventually, skinners will be harvesting magical and mythical beasts like basilisks, worms, and dragons. Primary use for skinning yields is in crafting recipes for outfitters, provisioners, and alchemists. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the fact that they've added, you know, the blood as an aspect, because that's something that I was talking about. To add, like, you know, mini game, what I would do is, before you can skin it, you got to bleed it out. Otherwise, you're gonna get
too graphic for some people.
Otherwise, you're gonna get, you know, blood all over the place. So basically, you go and kill the beast, or you pick up the beasts that are being left over by the scar because they're just running rampant, and you take them back to your house. You hang them up. You bleed them out. You gather the blood. And then you can start skinning them. Because that's how you do it. You bleed out the animal, then you skin it. Only makes sense. And
go ahead.
I like the fact that they've added the aspect of magical and mythical beasts as well. That's something that you would have to learn to acquire, learn to be able to do. So it's, you know, it's kind of like they already have similar ideas as to what we're talking about. So it's definitely cool to see that they've added that little bit of extra where, you know, basilisks and worms and dragons are something that you can't just go get your knife and then off you go. No, it doesn't work like that. That basilisk is going to stomp you down.
Right. Unless you're scared. And the thing is, like, with skinning, I don't feel that it really requires a minigame, because skinning requires the death of an NPC or a mob, basically, which is adventuring. So there's overlap there, whereas with something like fishing, there's not really much overlap. You could technically say that going into the zone is venturing.
But what about the bleed out? Maybe it takes a bit longer.
Possibly.
Maybe.
That's the only downside you would have. Because you're absolutely right. It would, you know, there's no point really how to do. But having, like, maybe you have to wait a minute for it to fully bleed out or something like that.
Yeah, but skinning, you can ruin the pelts and things like that if you're fairly useless. So
maybe you could have, like, maybe you could even have forced skinning as an ability. You don't necessarily have that skinning knife or have the skills or whatever to go and skin that animal, so you can force skin it with the high risk of what you just said, destroying that leather or destroying that meat and so forth, rendering it useless. So yeah. It's kind of like a fizzle. You can end up fizzling that skinning because you've tried to force your way through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there are, I don't know, I kind of grew up in the country for a while, and I can certainly say that there are ways to mess up skinning very, very badly. So, I mean, I can understand that where you mess up, you don't get anything.
It's like peeling a potato. Some people know, it's true, I cannot peel potatoes. I always take off, you know, like chunks like this. And when I peel the potato, like, my wife peels it, it's like paper thin. And when I peel it, it's like, you know, I take half the potato away. Get big chunks out of it. Exactly the same with skinning. If you're not careful, you're going to ruin it.
That is true.
But yeah, like you said, Josh, Lex, not necessarily each harvesting trait needs to have its own minigame. This adds a different approach. For instance, you might be somebody who hates skinning or hates fishing or hates gathering, but because there's a different approach to it, later on down the line, you might create another character and you decide to go and do something different this time. And it's a refreshment because it's not the same as what you did you know, the last couple of months. It's completely different. It's a unique approach to how you're going to witness the harvesting in the game.
Right. And what I'm basically saying is completely biased on my end. I mean, I find fishing boring. I know my wife doesn't. But that's why I think that fishing, for me, needs a mini game, because it would make it a little less boring for me. Some hardcore traditional fishers or fisher people will say in MMOs might not agree with me, and that's perfectly fine because they like it that way.
Dude.
For me, skinning doesn't need one.
Yeah. I'm with you with fishing, dude. Standing with your wellies on in that pond, not talking for hours.
I can't stand fishing in real life anyway.
With a flashlight.
Yeah. Real life fishing is rubbish.
Yeah, it's like, you know, does your wife nag you so much that you have to go into the wild, step into that river, and just be a doll with your fishing pole?
Well, no, I mean, if the people do that actually enjoy real life fishing, we're not bashing you. That's my personal opinion now. I mean, I find staring at thousands of lines of code relaxing. Pretty sure that makes me crazy, but it's the same thing with fishing. I look at fishing. Go, you're crazy.
I have a high respect for those that can and enjoy fishing, because you know it's a higher level of relaxation that we just can't comprehend and get into. So I definitely think that I have a high respect. My neighbour actually fishes every weekend, every Saturday night. He's off. Comes back Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, every weekend. He's asked me to come along. I've said, you ain't getting me in those waters. No, I've been fishing twice in my life. I hated it. I just can't do it. But I can understand for some people the value of it.
Yeah. And
the thing is, over here, you can't take the fish home. So what's the point? I go to fish to get food, to cook it. But over here, you're not allowed to. You have to throw it back in the water. You need to get yourself a fishing license, and then you got to go and, you know, do courses every couple of months. You got to do refreshments and all this stuff, and you can't keep the fish that you fish. You have to put them back in the water. So I asked myself, what's the point? Why? Why spend hours trying to get that one trout or that one whatever, and then you got to throw it back in anyway? Where's the fun in that? Anyway, moving on. Lex is rumbling there going blah, 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 blah. Anything to add to skinning?
No, because I don't want people with signs outside my door that say fur is murder.
Right, so let's go have a look at mining. Once you find your first pickaxe, you're ready to start delving in caves, quarries, and passes for ore veins. Ore types are dispersed throughout Terminus based on their local stratum, rather than being intended players' levels within a given zone. As a result, some areas will be richer in certain gems and ores, with some zones having wholly unique materials. Starting out, a miner will find common ores and gems such as copper, tin, iron, jasper, onyx, quartz, and opal. As they gain in skill, miners will find themselves digging up more rare materials like gold, mithril, platinum, rubies, diamonds, and emeralds. Additionally, some creatures like golems and gargoyles can be mined with the correct skill levels and stronger pickaxes. Regardless of a miner's skill level, they should be prepared to find lots of coal. Primary use for mining yields is in crafting recipes for blacksmiths and stonemasons, with some overlap for alchemists and scribes. So that's how they want to approach mine. I think it makes sense. Definitely. Yeah. It sounds...
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fact that you can actually mine gargoyles.
Well, that's also been done in WoW.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It makes sense.
It is a rock beast.
Yep.
Yeah. So if it's made of rock, and so is that node that you're mining, I'm pretty sure I can find something here.
I mean, they showed it off in the stream where they went into Black Dagger's Keep. Underneath where the bridge was, there were those green crystals.
Yep.
Those were things that would be harvestable later on down the line. So I can picture that being something for the miners to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be unique to Halnir's Cave. You know? That'd be a reason to go back. You could be even, max level, making something, and you go, oh, I need to get stuff from Halnir's Cave. And while you're there, might as well take a group, might as well go down to where the higher level stuff is and have yourself a time.
Exactly.
Anything to add to mining, guys?
The only thing that I would like to request, if VR ever watches this, please add a little variation to what your mining nodes look like. Because for the love of God, I got so tired of looking at those tiny little mounds of rocks and wow. Oh my Lord. Or at least make them blend in a little more,
Yeah.
It was pretty, I mean, granted, WoW is still a very old game, but it was still pretty bad. You got this nice smooth slope to a hill, and you got this big pimple sticking out of it, and you're like, oh, there's my node.
Yeah. But don't make it too hard though, as well.
No.
Where you can't see it, where you wander for hours around this mountain or in this mountain. You're like,
no, don't make it like there's a slight shimmer on the ground. Oh, there's your node. No, I mean you could do a small pile of rocks or something, and you could change up the way it looks.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The color, like iron, is a dark, grayish, black.
Right, and don't. Please don't just do like a different texture on the same model. Please. Because, people who are a little more experienced in a lot of the stuff and who happen to be developers themselves or something like that, we see this repetition over and over and over. And it doesn't bother us at first, but give us 6 months in the game and it will just drive us insane.
And, and some ores and metal, they might have a lump. They might stick out. Some might be actually inside. So they could maybe have a different stone on the outside that shimmers differently, notifying you that, hey, there might be something behind this. So you bang away at the stone, and underneath that stone is copper or is iron.
Kind of like
just like landmark.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to touch on landmark again because I brought that up too much today, but a lot comes from that. How they've done that is definitely a really cool approach because you have sometimes it's going to be underneath something. You're not just going to go and find gold on the surface unless it's a cave that's been hidden for millennia and really deep and God knows what's happened.
Going, this is a cave. Things have gone through here. Why is this gold still here?
Yeah, and the one thing that also bugs me is that on every new expansion, that's the only place you're going to find new minerals and that type of thing. It's like, what? All of a sudden, did suddenly new ground appear in this world now? All of a sudden,
right?
No, they should have the similar nodes, but maybe rarer stuff that you find deeper underground or something like that.
I mean, I guess what I'm kind of just asking for is a little more believability.
Yeah.
That's probably not a word. Because when I see something that's absolutely ridiculous, like you see, like as an example with WoW, you'll see a nice gentle hill, then the node spawns on a hill because it's ore. It'll only spawn in mountainous areas, and it looks like a pimple even from like 100 meters away. To me, there are times where if I'm really craving that immersion, I really just want to lose myself in the game because it's been a rough day. That just pops me right out.
Basically, let's say they have in, the lower tier adventuring aspect of the game, they have a sand mountain. And in the T5, they have a sand mountain. Then I should technically in both find sunstone.
Right.
To gather. Do I necessarily, do I have the pick at level 1 or 10 or whatnot? Maybe not. But later on, I might not have to travel so far, so I go into that sand mountain in near Thronefast, near the Nubia. I don't have to worry about mobs attacking me and this, that, and the other. That at the end is the benefit that I get for getting so far.
Right.
You know, so
there is something to be said about like how certain resources are only available in certain level zones.
Mm.
If I go into a game and we'll say that I really enjoyed the dungeons, right? So I'm obviously going to let my crafting slide because I'm not that big of a crafter right now. If I go back and want to work on it, I mean, I know that they've said that zones will be for a very wide range of levels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, really hoping that means that even in those high-level sections in that area, I'll find these lower-level nodes so that I can work it. There is a downside to that, of course, of what if it's a high-level person with a equally high gathering skill? Should they not be able to find anything there? And the answer is they should. But there should still be a little bit of intermixing or a little overlap, just not a straight up, this is all you find here, this is all you find here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be, you know, where it makes sense, like they said already. You know, in the woods, you'll find wood. In caves and quarrels and all that good stuff, you'll find stuff to mine. You know, in the rivers and banks and oceans and seas and everything, you'll find fish. In the wildlife, you'll find stuff to skin. Plants you'll find all over the place, in the woods, in the desert, up in the mountains, up in the swamps, where it makes sense. Don't just create, you know, something, you know, a swamp stone because you just want to put some stones in a swamp.
Right.
So the final one is woodcutting. Aspiring lumberjacks will need to find an axe suitable for woodcutting and some harvestable stumps, wood piles or trees. Not all trees will be choppable though. We don't want to find barren wastelands filled with nothing but stumps. Well, you know, we could work around that. Harvestable woodcutting targets will be found throughout Pantheon based on where they make sense ecologically, with some exceptions made for NPC groups that may be trading or cultivating specific lumber types. In the early skill ranges, woodcutters will find themselves interacting with basic types like oak, pine, poplar and ash. More experienced woodcutters will have opportunities to harvest rare and zone-specific woods like mirror wood, swamp willow and candlewood. In addition to lumber, saps and barks will sometimes appear in woodcutting yields. The primary use for woodcutting rewards is in crafting recipes for woodworkers, with some overlap for alchemists, scribes and provisioners. What's with giving the alchemists, scribes and provisioners all this love? Come on. Where's the carpenter?
Blacksmith. That's all I'm saying. It's because they know that if I'm going to craft, it'll be blacksmith.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, woodcutting is fairly straightforward, just like mining. You know, Again, I would like to see different models or different tints to the same resource. You know, different models, so that you don't see, you know, generic oak tree number 4. You know, so that you could just look at a distance like that's harvestable, that one's harvestable. You know, mix it up a little bit so that there is just a little bit of, is this one harvestable? Oh, it is. You know, a little bit of adventure to it.
Maybe you need to have a certain skill in gathering. So basically, to kind of this is a joke, all right? To kind of compensate for the barren wastelands, for you to chop down that tree, you got to plant one next to it. Chop it down, you put the seed in, you grow the next tree. Boom.
Oh God. That's the process of gathering wood. You chop a tree down.
Well, that's why that's why it's called gathering wood. It's not called fishing wood or skinning wood or mining wood. It's called gathering wood. So you know, there's a sense behind that. There's actual meaning behind it. That's why they have gathering in the game and wood cutting. You gather the wood.
Now, to take this joke a little bit serious, what if there was something where You know, all trees were harvestable, but basically chopping down a tree would take a crazy amount of time because let's face it, if you're chopping down a tree with an axe, it takes a while. Trust me. Some zones, like say Thrown Fast, would require that you replant it because it's like law there.
Wild's End, maybe.
Scargle, they don't care.
Yep.
Exactly.
Another thing as well is, you know, if you cut down the trees, maybe that has an impact in the wildlife around that area. Maybe, you know, let's say, for instance, a horde of orcs have, you know, situated themselves in those woods, and you start chopping down those trees. They might get up and leave because, hey, they might be found out.
That or there's no more trees left.
Or there's no more trees left. Or the wildlife disappears and something else moves in. That also adds ways to create small events, maybe.
Right.
It does, yeah.
It does. It is an immense amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
From what we've seen in past streams, my only fear is that their current systems were designed without that in mind, and it would not be feasible to add them at this time.
But you know, the way they're approaching it now, anyway, is still spot on.
Right.
You know, it is straightforward. There's nothing really to discuss and digress with woodcutting. You know, the main thing is it makes sense.
Yes.
That it's
and there's a little variety.
and that it's in areas what you know. You don't go to the highest mountain and cut down that tree because all of a sudden there's a tree there. What's a tree doing up there?
Kill it.
No, Wild's End, for instance, I could see maybe something like in Wild's End they could have an event, or they could have something set up where if you cut down trees in Wild's End's called Wild's End for a reason. It's not normal in that place. Yeah. Maybe the trees are kind of alive and they start, you know.
Trees start to bleed.
Or they start.
Tree and you get a halfling spear in the buttocks.
Or you get stuck in a tree, and we have somebody who has experience with that, getting stuck in trees. You know, so that could be a thing.
It would be cool. I'm not gonna lie. Stuff like that would be very cool.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's in the cards for Pantheon.
And the thing is,
and I'm okay with that. Though.
Yeah. You know, and this is all just, you know, spitballing, theory crafting, brainstorming, and you know, if some of these possibilities are something that they could do in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or whenever they want, you know, it's not something we need to see right away. Or you know, for any MMO going, but you know, if some of these possibilities sound cool enough and it can be done, it's something to keep in the back of your head and look at, you know, going forward, because you know somebody's going to do it at some point, and you know it's not something we need right away.
Right. With all of our brainstorming sessions, I call it running my mouth. My only hope is not necessarily that VR takes to heart or that they try to implement it. I would just love to see someone try it.
Yep.
That's it. That's all. It would be cool to be like, does it work? And it's like, no, there was a flaw with this. Oh, I didn't think about that. That's cool. Or, hey, that worked really well. Or they changed it to make it even better.
Mm.
But yeah. A lot of the stuff we come up with, there's no way.
Yeah. That's 5, 10, 15 years in the future.
That's Pantheon 2.
2.0, yep.
So before we get into salvaging, to finish this off, even though it's not part of the harvesting, but it was put in there, let's go butt wild now. Something I wanted to talk about through the entire show. Somebody's already mentioned it in chat, but we already had this already in our heads.
Right.
How could perception work with harvesting?
A lot of ways.
Yeah. Easy.
What could you see happen with perception and harvesting? Okay. Who wants to start?
You can, Lex.
So when we first started the show, we had talked about, you know, different node types. How some games have public nodes where everybody can harvest them on an interval. Or you have contested nodes where you mine it and the guy running up to it's cursing your name because it's gone. You could do like a public or shared style node in general, but then perception could trigger the contested ones, which would end up giving you more or rarer materials. That's what I would do with it.
Yeah, exactly. I would think that the perception would allow you to see nodes that might not even be there, ultimately, and allow you to say, well, this area will actually harvest X amount of rares or material for me, because I can see by the layout of these mountains, trees over here, that type of thing. Which is more bountiful? What are we going to be able to get over here?
Maybe you get additional information about that mountain, that tree, that rock, that that sea of water, to also giving you an indication of what tool you might require. Maybe racial benefits. Depending on your race, you might have some benefits towards some of the gathering skills, harvesting skills. So automatically you might get a perception bonus from the get-go that will inform you. So some races might have a slight advantage starting off with the harvesting, whereas some others might not. There's definitely a lot of room for this, and I would love to see perception also twist its way into harvesting as well.
Oh yeah,
I think it will.
My philosophy has always been, if it's for adventurers, why can't it be for crafters? Find a way to make it for crafters.
Yep, and another good point from chat. Maybe if you've got, if you have that trait for fishing, you might be warned about a shark attack.
Right.
You might be warned about a cave,
Yeah, or it could start a quest because.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a strange rune on this golem that's glowing even though he's dead.
Yeah.
So perception's like, I've seen that somewhere before, or something, and it starts you on a quest.
It could also be finding books in the libraries saying of this famous miner that used to mine in X, Y, and Z area.
And his pick, he lost his pick, yeah.
And only reading that book allows you to find that cave entrance that nobody else can find.
Yep.
I just want to rename it Booty Bay now.
It definitely, adds a lot of ways to time sync. Yet again, a word we use quite often is time syncing, but also that much more depth to it. Not necessarily just fishing, finding that lost treasure, and boom. If you haven't got the perception skill high enough, or you haven't got that bonus for fishing, you might find this chest that's technically a piece of lost treasure, but for you it holds no significance at this point in time. Now Joshua comes into my group, and all of a sudden his perception bar's going off. Because he sees me with this chest, and he's like, hey, I just got a message saying that your chest holds something greater to it. But, there's a secret to it. So now this opens up an adventure for the both of us. Because don't forget, perception is not something you require to have at the same level. Perception's, built like a movie. You have a beginning, your main cast, you have the middle where all the action is, and then you got your co-stars coming in and joining in on the adventure. That's how perception works. You don't need to necessarily have it to use it or to take part in it. So I could see that also coming into effect, especially where the fishing is. I loot all this stuff. For me, it's crap. A rusty mug of sorts. But hey, for Josh, that's the Holy Grail. I've just looted the Holy Grail.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly. So, yeah, perception's definitely something I can see and would love to see. 100% hit harvesting in Pantheon as well. just for that little bit of extra, because maybe there could be this special rock in a certain mountain. You take your pickaxe,
The heart of the mountain.
you smash or want to go and smash that rock, and your pickaxe just splits into 1,000 pieces. A high-pitched hum shoots out. The rock starts to crackle. Sparks and lights start flashing out of that rock, and perception kicks in. You found, the Archive Motherstone.
Mm-hmm. Nice, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that maybe. Another way to make, another way maybe to introduce us into adventure packs or coming updates. It doesn't necessarily maybe have to be something that the adventurers always benefit from. Maybe harvesters are required to unlock the new secrets of a expansion coming up. The same with the crafters as well. This also goes for them. It doesn't necessarily have to always be the core game is the adventurers. Maybe this is a world event where adventurers have to come together with the harvesters and fend off and go into the depths of these mountains or whatever, these evil woods in Wild's End, and you need a harvester to unlock the secret. But it's a group or a world event. We do it as a group or as a raid or whatever to go in there.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you the chance to mix up things. Actually, make harvesters feel wanted and feel like they can, have.
Make harvesters great again.
Yep.
Get together. We'll build a wall. Like stonemasons. Well, I mean, can you imagine, like, say you're a miner. You're up in the middle of some crazy mountain. You're mining away, and all of a sudden, perception. And it could just be a perception event, we'll say, and it's like all of a sudden there's a hole there now.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, what's this? You go and you do stuff, and eventually it unlocks like a raid zone or a dungeon zone.
Mm.
And you could get like can you imagine the miners, what they would be feeling if all of a sudden you see like such and such has been discovered by Joshua while mining in the mountains?
And
Exactly.
another thing to point out as well is when you look at these trades, right? Fishing, skinning, woodcutting, gathering, mining. What do they all have in common? These guys normally that work in those fields also have a feel to the weather. They know when there's a shift or a change coming in the weather. So maybe perception kicks in there as well for them. Warning them off of a storm coming or this or that. And then to touch on what you said with, on the top of a mountain, all of a sudden perception kicks and got a hole in there. What about world events like earthquakes or something like that? You can have like a cataclysm. World of Warcraft's cataclysm. You get an advanced insight.
The entire world changes.
Into
So what about you as a miner? You break open a wall and it's an
hidden
evil
passages
that has never been discovered before.
Like we talked about in a past show, a plague.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
I'm sorry. I know it would be a pain in the butt, and I know a lot of you, the viewers out there, are going, "Stop." But I would have a lot of fun seeing someone walk in and be like, "Get away, back."
what about somebody evil, who really just hates everybody? He's a woodcutter. He's found himself the woodcutting blade of all evils.
And
He
he's got a
goes to
chip on his shoulder.
He goes to the Elvish lands and he cuts down their mother tree
Oof.
and sparks out, a crisis that's gonna haunt the whole of Terminus and affect us all. Maybe this evil being.
If that was a thing, you know what I'd do? I'd strip my character down to his skivvies with nothing but an axe. I'd be like, "Here, hold my beer. Here we go." I'm just gonna run in and try to get a chop on it.
Yeah, definitely some room for some crazy ideas. As you can see, this is what we do. We do
And
crazy.
Sometimes crazy ideas, even though they're not necessarily lore based or anything like that, they're fun, and that's in the end what everything is about. If you're not having fun, why are you doing it?
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's go and move on to salvaging, which is an addition to harvesting. It's not one of those 5 skills that you can acquire and get into. It's actually an addition to harvesting. So want to turn your unwanted items back into the raw ingredients or crafting subcomponents. This is the skill for harvesters that like destroying things. Players wanting to work on salvaging will need to get their hands on the salvager's kit and then take their excess armor, weapons, tools and accessories to an appropriate workstation. Metal goods go to the forge, tailored goods go to the loom, wooden goods go to the woodcutter's bench, and jewellery goes to the stonemason's bench. Salvagers that are just starting out will find themselves most often receiving raw or broken scraps, bits and flecks back from their efforts. As a salvager gains more skill though, they'll be more likely to receive crafting components back such as ingots, bolts or cloth, armour padding, bits of chain and cut gems and stones. Most professions share equally in the yields from salvaging. The exceptions are alchemists and provisioners, as separating liquids and foodstuffs is a bit sticky.
Ha ha. And I know someone over there VR is going, got it.
And it does make sense that the harvester would be able to salvage.
Right. I mean, look, I made a hat. Now it's parts. But again, it's a fairly standard gathering skill, I guess, nowadays.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's always a good thing to have because it gets items out of the economy. Whether it be ones that are bound or ones that are not, it still removes them.
And it's not just that. It's, the fisherman's going to know what fish this is. The gatherer's going to know what plant this is. The miner's going to know what rock this is. The skinner's going to know what kind of leather and meat and all this is. The woodcutter's going to know what kind of wood that is. So if anybody's going to be able to salvage it, it's going to be those that interact with it on a daily basis and in first person.
I really hope that this skill is influenced by your other gathering skills. Because say if you were a high level woodcutter, you would obviously know how to handle wood, what kind of stress could it, how best to remove it from items, because you kind of know. And then you would get a larger yield of wood from an item. Whereas if you were a woodcutter and you're taking apart a breastplate, you might get some metal, you might get some cloth or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, you don't really know how metalworking really works, so you're unlikely to get as much back. Whereas if it were a bow, you'd be like, done.
Mm.
Exactly.
So that kind of tops it off for
this has been a long show.
Our crafting discussion in harvesting. And there's definitely a lot of food for thought today. A lot of cool ideas, crazy ideas, absolute insane ideas I've gone through today. And just to note, for next week, we will be doing a player Q&A, sitting down with Pi and talking a bit about Pantheon. And then after that, we will be sort of on break. There will be no show from the Voices of Terminus on the weekly basis. It will all depend on Visionary Realms. If they end up streaming or anything like that, then we will basically.
If there's anything noteworthy that to do a show, well, we will
exactly.
cut it short.
We will cut it short and do a show, but that all depends on the outstanding circumstances and what's to come, basically.
There's someone at VR going, let's mark that on a calendar.
So we hope you enjoyed today, and we'll see you all next Friday, and then after that we will be on break until the 8th or we'll be back on the 9th of March then, when we officially come back. If we do come back sooner, or we have a special stream coming up or whatever, we will inform you via Twitter, Discord, so keep your eyes out for those.
Just make sure you hit the notification thing up there.
Yep. And with that, thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you all next week, fresh and revived, for a nice, juicy player Q&A with Pi. Thanks, Josh and Lex. It was a blast, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, fun as always. Be safe, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Cheers, guys.